Well, you can't just please everybody, I guess, especially when it comes to liberals, Democrats, and leftists. Uh, Tom Perez isn't happy today. I am. America's awesome. We're having an amazing year, an amazing presidency, an amazing day. Things are going good. Now, if you've noticed, I'm a little bit disheveled today. For those of you who are brand new, I suffered a knee injury. I've been stuck at home for a while. I have to have minor surgery. Not really a big deal. It's related to bone disease that I have. But it's under control and it's all good. But that's why I'm not shaved, and that's why there's a backdrop, and I'm not in my normal studio. You know, the set that we got here and everything. So that's what that is. But also, it's the 4th of July, and we don't have to work today. So we're all supposed to be having fun, and I for one am excited about it. Now, if you're watching this is live. This is recorded live. So if you're in the chat room, go ahead and say hi and let everybody know that you're there. And but yeah, I mean, I saw this statement from the DNC chairman that basically attacks the condition of the U.S. And it's like, man, like what a depressing time. That's like that's like atheists picking Christmas to go after Jesus or something. It's like, just chill out and have one day of just have some fun, even if you hate the country, whatever, just at least let everybody else have their fun. But they can't do that. So Democratic National Committee, or DNC chairman Tom Perez, released a statement, and I want to go through this and actually talk about it. Now, for those who are brand new to the channel, I do a video every day. They're not always live, but we did a live one last Thanksgiving on Into the Multiverse, and it was a lot of fun. So today I wanted to do a live one for today's video. I thought that would be a good thing to do, and also give me a chance to talk to some of you out there and tell you happy 4th of July, happy Independence Day. Ask you if you're sick of the winning yet. I think I could handle a little bit more, but yeah. So but not everybody is as elated about living in America and just being an American as we might be. So the DNC chairman, Tom Perez, released a statement attacking the condition of the U.S. and lack of freedom across the country on the 4th of July. He says, quote, lack of freedom. He says, quote, thousands of children have been separated from their parents at our southern border. At our highest court, workers' rights are being taken away. Voting rights are under assault. Muslim Americans are being discriminated against for their faith, and women's rights to choose is under threat like never before. So that's what he said. He also stated that on Independence Day, too many Americans are out of jobs and can't receive health care. The unemployment rate in the U.S., however, is the lowest it's been in 18 years under President Donald Trump. But, with the Trump derangement syndrome, they can't admit to that. And black unemployment has actually dropped to 6.8%, which is the lowest since 1972. And there's studies on that. But Perez continued, quote, as we celebrate our nation's independence, we recognize that America's founding promise remains out of reach for too many families. Too many members of our society are still struggling to find a good paying job or get the health care they need. Too many women, LGBTQ, Americans, people of color, and people with disabilities still face inequality and injustice across our society. End quote. He continued that. And I'll tell you what, I technically have a disability, and I think that we are doing great. Actually, one of the best things that I was able to do was get off of disability. Now, I know that not everybody is able to do that. There are some people that genuinely need some type of help, so I understand that. But again, there are plenty of people in the system who may not need it. So we got some great people in the chat. Cindy says, God bless the USA. I've been reading the King James a little bit too much. I'm getting my these and thous and thiths all mixed up. But yes, you're right, Sandy. God bless the USA. Karen saying, ex-pay from Georgia, living in Aussie land. Happy 4th, y'all. Thank you, Karen. No, he's saying the reason these people can't celebrate is because they are going to prison. Well, it's hard to celebrate if you know that. That's very true. But yes, I'm glad to see you all here and everybody else that is in the chat. So yeah, continuing on. Where did we leave off here? So Republicans actually released a much different statement Wednesday with a more positive message, honoring those who fought to make America a free nation, as well as thanking service members for their dedication to the U.S. And yes, I will absolutely concur that. Any service members out there, thank you for your service. So this comes from the RNC chairwoman, Ronna McDaniel. She said in a statement, quote, "As we celebrate more than 2 centuries of independence, we honor the patriots who declare America a free nation in 1776. We also remember and thank our service members for their lasting dedication and countless sacrifices to guard our liberties." McDaniel stated the NRC would, quote, "uphold America's founding principles and continue to fight for our inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all." So that's fantastic. Now, I do want to go through some of this statement from Tom Perez, who's apparently not happy here. And, you know, there's a difference between being happy and being critical, or just being depressing and being critical, because, listen, it's one thing to be critical. You can still be happy about it. There's, of course, now, I believe that we live in the best country in the world, the best. Is it perfect? No, because human beings aren't perfect. So is there room for improvement? Sure. But it's fine to be critical of those things, but you can still enjoy the country you live in. You can still enjoy the people here and appreciate what a miracle this country is. Not even compared against countries of the world today, but all throughout history. I mean, it's ridiculous how amazing America is. I mean, it's phenomenal. Again, not perfect, but it's fine to be critical and yet have a positive attitude about it. But you know, what we get a lot from the left is just, you know, America is the worst and all this stuff. Actually, Steven Crowder from Louder with Crowder just put up an installment of a segment he does called "Change My Mind," where he'll go out to usually colleges and stuff. This time, I think he went to like a DNC event or something, and he sets up a booth and then he asks people to change his mind. So on this topic, it was that America is the best country in the world, basically, and I mean, it was a phenomenal segment. All of them are, but this one especially was really good because I really truly believe he is open to having his mind changed, but he's also done all the research and has a lot of facts. The points that the people on the left, that the Democrats were bringing up, weren't real. Like there wasn't any way to vet any of them or to cite any sources, and it was just an interesting segment. You should check that out. But yeah, Cindy in chat is saying the left can't be happy unless we convert to communism. Yeah, exactly. And then that will strangle our country to death. And then you know, then we don't have a country anymore, basically. But yeah, either communism or some type of socialism or, you know, Marxism, any kind of ism that isn't capitalism or something like that. Which I don't know about you. And of course, I mean, of course, like with capitalism, there's a lot of criticisms of capitalism, but it's not actually capitalism that people criticize. It's the corruption of capitalism, or and not that capitalism itself is corrupt, but when capitalism isn't done properly, when it becomes corrupted, that's where, you know, the left will point out stuff. Sometimes valid, but then they say that the whole thing is capitalism, and no, that's not true. And yet every instance of, you know, communism, socialism, Marxism, any of that stuff leads to death and destruction and all sorts of horrible things. It goes beyond just, you know, corporate greed and corruption and that kind of stuff. So I really like capitalism, and I think that we've got a good set of checks and balances to keep it at bay, because, you know, it's against the law for a lot of this corruption to occur, and people do get in trouble for it. So that's good. So I say, well, if you're going to be critical of capitalism, fine, but, you know, work with what we actually have. You know, don't just set up straw men and then go out and attack those. Joy Electric is saying hi, guys. Hi, Joy Electric 567. Good to have you here. We are talking about how awesome America is, despite what the DNC chair Tom Perez has said. So let's break this down, because like a lot of things from the left, their argument is predicated on the fact that they think that they control the language and they can just mean things they can just say things and make them mean whatever they want them to mean. Words don't really have any concrete definitions anymore. That's how they win arguments. They don't actually win arguments. They annoy their opponent until the opponent is just done and can't do anything anymore. Because if you can't even settle on what the definition of a word is, before going into a debate, there just is no debate that can be had. It's just chaos and nonsense. And then the leftist will think that he won, while the person on the right has said, there's just no conversation that can be had. And it's because of this control of language, because they know that they can't win on logic. They actually, funny enough, they logically know that they can't win on logic, so they override that logic with emotion and nonsense and things. Okay, so of course, today we're celebrating independence for our great nation, founded in the everlasting principles of freedom, unity, and trust in God. But the Democratic National Committee put out a statement, for those of you in the live chat who are just joining us, that spells only doom and gloom for the country. And the statement was crafted by DNC Chair Tom Perez. So I want to go through this like line by line and kind of just break it down and just show how ridiculous it is. And the only way this works is if you have cognitive dissonance. The only way that this line of thinking works, where America is just this bad, is if you redefine what you mean by bad, or if you redefine what you mean by America, if you control the language. And we on the right don't really typically like to do that. Conservatives typically like to have good, honest debate and conversation, and the only way you can do that, the end goal isn't to win. The end goal is that you both learn something and you maybe can make your argument stronger. But, no one wins in a debate. Nobody wins even in a discussion or an argument. That's not the point. And that's what the left gets wrong. The left keeps trying to win the argument. They're missing the whole point. And that's why they've degraded into this emotional instability and ignorance, really. Whereas, I think on the conservative end, it's only thriving, and you're getting more. That's why, and I don't even think he's strictly conservative. I mean, he's pretty conservative, but Dr. Jordan Peterson is incredibly popular right now. Joe Rogan, he's like center. But he's incredibly popular and has been for a long time. But it's because they know how to have good, honest conversations, even when you disagree. It doesn't get emotional and it doesn't turn into this big, ugly thing. It's just, well, how do you see it? Okay, then here's how I see it. And let's compare those and let's see what we can both learn from the conversation. That's what it's all about. But if your main goal is to win the argument, which is a terrible goal to have, it's a really shallow goal, because all that proves, if you win the argument, all that proves is you're fine how you are now and you have nothing to learn. What a dismal place to be in. I mean, that is depressing. But okay, so let's go through some of these statements. I'm kind of talking fast, so I'm going to get thirsty from time to time. Trying to lean off camera so you don't have to see and hear me swallow liquids, because who wants to witness that? But anyway, so yeah, here we go. So he says, Perez has said, nearly 2.5 centuries ago, a band of patriots gathered in Philadelphia to declare that all men are created equal. Well, let's break that down. So the first obfuscation comes in that first sentence. The founding fathers didn't only declare that all men are created equal. They actually said, quote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal," end quote. So that self-evident part, it's like it's not up for debate. Like everybody should at least be able to understand that. And the omission of the fact that these truths are self-evident, that really reveals the ideology that the Democrats have. Which is that your rights and your freedoms were given to you by the government. That's typically what Democrats will say. And that's why they want an expanding government, because they think that that's going to equal more rights somehow, or stronger rights or something like that. But this directly contradicts what the founding fathers said. It directly contradicts founding principles. Rights and freedoms are given by God, and the only thing government can do is take them away. That's all. Government can't give you more of them. If you get the government involved, all it's going to do is take them away. And this explains why the Democrats are embracing socialist ideology. So somebody in the chat brought up communism. This is why that's so attractive to them. Which thinks that, like, free college, free healthcare, free housing, they think that that's all rights. They're not rights. They think that since government gave free speech, free religion, ability to defend yourself, that government can give anything. And that's simply not true. It's not the government that gives those. It's God. And the government can only take those away. Now, free college, free healthcare, free housing, those aren't actual rights the way that we think of free speech and the right to defend yourself and things like that. They're not rights given to you by God. That's something that we got to kind of figure out in society and in American culture and things like that. We have to have discussions to figure that out, but we can't have good discussions and come to good solutions if the left is going to control the language and basically put us conservatives in a place where we either got to follow their fantasy, or what we're going to do is the other option, which we always take, is just say, well, there's no conversation that can be had. So here's another line from what Tom Perez said here. Our nation has changed dramatically since those words were first written on parchment. Generations of brave Americans, from service members to civil rights activists, have fought to expand the promise of equality for more Americans and move our country forward in its march toward a more perfect union. Now, the word expand there implies that the founding fathers had no intention of providing freedom and equality for all, rather that they were only referring to like a certain group. And I mean, you got to be historically ignorant to believe this or even entertain this as a possibility, because while the issue of slavery, I mean, sure, that was still prevalent in the time of the signing, and women were denied voting rights, both showing that government can only remove rights, not give them. These were hard-fought issues in the 18th century that an intellectually honest person can only, look at through their lens. There were many founders who knew that the creed of the country was not fully realized at the time of the founding of the country, and foresaw a time where these ideals could be realized. So the implementation of that ideology has not always been perfect, but the promise of equality has been there since the beginning. And again, this is equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome. Those are two very, very different things. So the left really pushes for equality of outcome, and the right typically pushes for equality of opportunity. The reason that equality of outcome doesn't work is because everybody has different values. Everybody has different wants in their life. Everybody values things differently. Like some people are willing to sacrifice a raise at their company if it means that they can spend more time with their family, while somebody else, they say, well, I'd rather just take the raise and provide for my family that way. Now, who's to say either one of those is right or wrong? It depends on who you are. If you're the kind of person who you're better serving your family by spending time with them because you're more sociable and you're just better at that, then that's the right choice. You take less money and you provide for your family on a more personal and emotional basis. But if you're the kind of person who the best way that you can provide for your family personally is by taking the raise, taking a couple extra hours a week and providing for them financially. And everybody has different personality types. Not everybody is as personable where you not everybody you want around all the time. But if that's how you can best provide for your family, then that's the right choice for you. So it all depends on personality type and what kind of person you are. So equality of outcome would say, well, both get the raise. Both people get the raise despite how often they work. That's not going to work. Now, they both should have the opportunity. Sure, despite, what race, gender, any of that stuff. Yes, they should both have the opportunity, but they should not both have the equal outcome, because all our value structures are different. And that's what the left will not take into account, because they think from a group mindedness, while typically people on the right, conservatives, think on an individual basis. It's up to the individual what he or she wants to pursue and how he or she wants to go about it. And you're on an individual journey towards, truth and finding out what that is and the best way to do it. The groupthink stuff, that doesn't work, because we're not a group, we're an individual. We're part of groups, but think about how you would break those groups down. Okay, you got men and women. Those are two groups in the world. You can split that up into two groups. Okay, well, who's more oppressed? Let's say just in the U.S., men or women? A lot of people in the country would say women, and then other people would say, well, who cares? We live in America. It's great for everybody, generally speaking. Okay, well, if women are oppressed, well, now how do you break that group down? Is it white women? Is it Chinese women? Is it black women? Is, you know, which race now? Okay, then you break that down. Okay, well, is it I don't know if they say black women. Is it black women in who make this amount of money, or who are poor, who are or are not on welfare or food stamps, who are or are not abusing drugs, who are or are not born into a wealthy family, then lose it, or they find wealth later on in life and they move upwards that way. You see, you can split people down into all these groups, but what it eventually comes down to is that it all boils down to the individual, you know, and the left, I don't think, has quite got there yet. They haven't broken down groups enough to realize that's why when a black conservative happens, you know, when a black conservative speaks out, that's why the left gets so upset about it, because it doesn't fit into their group structure. And it's because, you know, you're looking at too big of groups. You know, the only size of group you should be looking at is the individual, and then it generally goes a lot better. Okay, so this next line. Well, actually, just a little bit more on that the promise of equality has been there since the beginning. Now, the phrase in there, march toward a more perfect union, that's also pretty disingenuous. In the preamble of the Constitution, it says, quote, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union." Okay, you know, end quote. It says more after that, obviously. but the more perfect union was formed in 1789 when the Constitution was ratified. And the Democrats are marching towards a different union, one that doesn't adhere to the founding principles that we celebrate. So here comes the doom and gloom. America's founding promise was, you know, according to this article, that the one that, quote, all men are created equal, end quote. While over the centuries we have pushed to realize this truth, we have not always been perfect. And that's why we've had the 13th, 14th, 15th, and 19th amendments. So as you'll see, as we continue on, Perez will do nothing to elaborate actual ways that government is denying equal rights to citizens, because they can't. What policy is on the books right now that actually denies equal rights to anybody? You know, there just is none. So we'll go to the next line here. I want to jump in the chat, see who else is here. Hello, Megan. Good to see you. The equality of outcome reduces the equality of opportunity, right? Yes, that is a good point. So if you have equality of outcome, that actually would reduce the equality of opportunity, because you don't need the opportunity anymore. If it's just a blanket statement that everybody should just completely be equal, everybody should, let's take that to the extreme. Everybody makes the exact same amount no matter what they do. Doesn't matter if you mow lawns for a living or if you're a surgeon. It doesn't matter. You make the same amount of money. Now, the surgeon might be the type of person who says, well, you know, I'm the type of person who can go out and work that much, and I love doing it, and I provide for my family that way. While the guy that mows lawn says, well, it's a seasonal job, and I really want to spend time with my family, and I want to have the most amount of time possible. I want to do that. Okay, so if they both make the same amount of money, yet the surgeon, and there's two different ways. There's two different ways of looking about it. What if they both make the same amount of money, yet they also both work the same amount of hours? It's 9 to 5, and they both make the same amount of money. That kills incentive, and it kills opportunity, because there's no moving up. There's no moving up. There's no in any regard, wherever your value system is. There's no opportunity to be competitive in the workplace, which is when done in a healthy way, it's extremely beneficial, and it actually can create a lot of really good camaraderie. Where people get jealous and hurt feelings and all that stuff, that's when competition is really more corruption than anything else. So yeah, Megan, you make a good point that the equality of outcome does reduce, and I would say even eventually eliminates, the equality of opportunity. Living Life Outdoors TV says basically the same thing I did, and they are here, so good to see you guys. But anyway, so let's continue on in this. 1 second. Okay, so the next line in Tom Perez's statement here. Too many members of our society are still struggling to find a good paying job or get the health care they need. Okay, listen, The DNC is not stupid enough to complain about jobs and insurance with the Trump economy doing so well and Obamacare going down in flames. So they moved the goalpost, and you see this all the time. So now it's a good paying job. It's not just a job. It's a good paying job because that assumes that everybody wants a good paying job. Well, maybe somebody would just wants a livable paying job. Maybe somebody wants just enough to get by and then they want to spend time with their family. Is that not possible? Or maybe a woman, maybe certain women out there don't want a job at all and they'd rather spend time with their family. Is that so impossible to imagine? That's my wife is one of those. She loves spending time with the family. She's just working part-time now. And we're taking a slight financial hit in order for her to do that, but it's worth it because she gets to spend. It's all about where your value structures are at. So now it's not just a job, it's a good paying job because that assumes that everybody's the same and everybody wants a good paying job, which you would think on the surface, well, it does. Isn't that obvious? Everybody wants that. Not really. Not everybody does. Many people do. Many women want to go out in the workforce and work 80 hours a week as a lawyer or something. And great, fine. If they want to do that, that's great. No, but and that's the thing. That's the thing that the left. The left is trying to push this narrative that conservatives don't want women to work. No one is saying that. Find me somebody who's not just a raving racist or just a lunatic or one of these outliers that's 1% of 1% of 1% of people in the U.S. That actually says that. Nobody would say no. Women aren't allowed to work. I think that the government should get involved and stop women from working. Because that's the narrative. They won't say it in those terms because it sounds so stupid, but they'll say basically, well, people on the right don't think that women should work. Okay, if that's really what we thought, if we thought women should not work, how would we think we would get that done? The left now typically the conservatives, the way that they want to make changes through the culture, they don't want to get the government involved. But because the left does want to get the government involved, they project that onto their opponent, onto us. So they would think that we want to get the government involved to stop women from working. So, I mean, what scenario are they playing out here? But this is why this falls apart. So anyway, so now it's a good paying job. So they need to divide the country. They need to make people angry. Sure, under the Obama administration, you didn't have a job, but now you should be getting paid more. Forget about the fact that their policy prescription of raising the minimum wage is causing unemployment around the country. Forget about the fact that there are more available jobs in the country than people available to fill them. And forget about the lowest unemployment for Black Americans ever recorded. You're still struggling. Vote for us. That's basically the pitch from the left. So now it's getting the health care they need. It's not coverage anymore. So during the Obama administration, it was all about coverage. This is another ploy to control the language. So as long as your name has a check mark next to it on a big list that says insured, the mission was accomplished. Except the jury came back and the coverage is terrible. So premiums are skyrocketing. You can't keep your doctor. So the DNC is moving the goalpost yet again so the American people forget the mess that they made. And that's just not going to work. Oh, and there's also this lie going around that people on the left, and if you're on the right, well, if you're on the left, just say, don't fall for this. There's a lie going around saying, well, Americans don't want to do those jobs. We need immigrants, and when they say immigrants, they mean illegal immigrants. Believe me, people on the right, just check it out. Everybody on the right is totally fine with legal immigration. Legal. That's the problem we have. If it's illegal, we have a problem with it. If it's legal, great, sure. If they want to adopt our value structure here in America, they can come on in, but they got to do it legally. It's exactly what President Trump said. But they have to make the narrative say that we don't want immigrants or that we hate immigrants, and that's not the case. And it's silly. But then they actually, I think that they insult immigrants. People on the left insult immigrants because they'll say, well, Americans don't want these jobs, picking up trash or whatever it is. They don't want these jobs, mowing lawns. So we need to bring in people to fill those jobs. That is not true. Go talk to any American. Actually, no, go talk to any conservative. See, they're in their own bubble. People on the left, no, they don't want to do those jobs because they're elitist and they think that those jobs are beneath them. And you can see it in their rhetoric. So let's just get let's get the filthy immigrants to do those jobs. That's basically, that you can almost hear it in their tone when they say stuff like that. They put on this facade of compassion, but that's not the case. Whereas we conservatives, by and large, will say, no, you do the job. There is no job that is beneath you. I worked at McDonald's for about almost 10 years. I think it was 9 years. I worked at McDonald's because I had to survive. I had to do it. That job was not beneath me. Now I hated it. It was a terrible job. There was a lot of unfair things that happened, during my 9 years there, and it was just awful. Also, I'm giving people heart attacks for a living, so it's not a very fulfilling job spiritually. But there was never this attitude. I never had this attitude, and the only people there that had the attitude of this job is beneath me were non-conservatives, and they didn't last long. They would last there a couple of months. That's why there's such a high turnover rate. But when you get a conservative in there, even a conservative kid, you get a conservative 16-year-old to go work at McDonald's. My brother did the same thing. He's technically my half brother, but I just say he's my brother. But he did the same thing. He hated his job, but he still stuck it through and did it because he had to provide for himself. There is no job beneath you. Americans do want to do those jobs, and they will do those jobs. True Americans will do that, and I'm including legal immigrants in that. If you're a legal immigrant, then you're an American. So people on the left do not understand the position on the right on this whole thing, and they don't take the time to. So anyway, so you see this constantly. The DNC keeps moving the goalposts. So so the American people kind of forget what kind of mess they made in the country. So let's take another look in the chat room here. We got a couple more people. Groot Official says hi Groot, and got a couple more people. All right, good. Glad you guys are all talking. I want both. That is why I am going to college again and starting my own media company focusing on outdoor activities, fishing, hiking, camping, etc. That comes from Living Life Outdoors TV. I have not checked it out, so I have no idea if it's any good, but you guys should check it out because why not? He's here in the chat room, so he or she clearly has good taste. So that's great. And he or she is saying Bible in one hand, fishing pole in the other. Let's just say he, because that's grammatically correct. When you don't know the gender of the person that you're talking about, then you just generally you say he. That's just a grammar thing. It's not a even to explain that shows how permeated this leftist ideology is in our culture. I mean, how many times have you heard or said a phrase like, well, they're not all like that? Like if you hear somebody or you yourself accidentally make a generalized statement, like, well, maybe women don't want to work, just generalized statement. Then you have to follow it up. Well, of course, not all women. How often is that? That got started, I think it was like 10 or 20 years ago. It was longer than 10. It was probably like 20 or 30 years ago. That got started because that was a tactic of the left to bash conservatives for being too ignorant. Because back then, everybody generalized. I mean, if you're old enough to remember, everybody generalized back then because you know what we're talking about. Everybody knows what everybody's talking about when they say that. Clearly, nobody means all of anything ever. It just doesn't happen. But because the left can't win on logical arguments, they have to go to those stupid word tactics. Defining things differently and stuff. So that was one of them, and that's an interesting piece of trivia. But I remember, I vaguely remember around, at least in my life, when I was just a kid, but when that started. Now it might have started earlier, and that might have just been when I was realizing it. But yeah. So it's one of those techniques. Living Life Outdoors wants to do an episode sometime. Email me at joshpeckdisclosure@gmail.com. And if you could send me some clips or send me a synopsis of what you do. And I'll see if I can fit you in. I don't make any promises to people that I don't know, but yeah, go ahead and send me your information. And, but that is months down the line. Hey, that works out perfect because I don't have any openings for months down the line. So yeah, so go ahead and email me. Can you help me find my keys to my cardiac, says Ernest Knowles. Now I would be interested to know why your heart is running on keys. That sounds like an interesting story, but we'll have to get to that. We'll have to get to that in a little bit because I want to finish up this statement and then I want to go spend some time with my family because it is 4th of July. Now here's this other line. Too many women, excuse me, 1 second. Too many women, LGBTQ Americans, people of color, and people with disabilities still face inequality and injustice across our society. And real quick, I know he meant Cadillac. I was just doing the leftist joke thing of, oh, he must have meant cardiac. Why is your heart? That's just anyway. But so okay, listen to that line again, and picture a left-leaning celebrity in your head, someone who's been around for a while. Let's see if we're all thinking of the same person. Let's see if we're all thinking of the same person. Listen to the line again and just picture one, and we'll see. Too many women, LGBTQ Americans, people of color, and people with disabilities still face inequality and injustice across our society. Were you thinking Oprah? I bet you we were all thinking Oprah. I mean, you can practically hear Oprah calling out to each identity group that Perez mentions. You're a victim and you're a victim and everybody's a victim. Democrats can't win on policy and they can't win on ideology. They can't win on logic. They can't win on reason. So they divide Americans by identity and call them victims. I wish Tom would elaborate on the empirical evidence that this is actually true. Anecdotal cases don't work on people who think long enough to know that you're lying to them. Here's another line. I think we got just a couple more. Everywhere we look, our most fundamental values are under attack. There was another line from his statement here. Barack Obama said in 2008, quote, "We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America," end quote. Now, that was an attack on our values. What Perez doesn't like is basic Republican governance. So Perez also says thousands of children have been separated from their parents at our southern border. Now think about this. Really, what happened? Did they violate federal law by entering the country illegally and had to go to a detention center? Did the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals rule in 2016 that children could not stay in a detention center because it was too inhumane? I mean, come on, leftists, you can't have it both ways. Did the Republican Congress try to sit down with the Democrats to fix it? And did the Democrat Minority Leader Chuck Schumer refuse to deal with Republicans, telling President Trump that he can just fix it with a pen? Did he do this before or after he accused of Trump of being too authoritarian? Perez isn't crying for these separated children. He's campaigning for open borders, and that's what everybody's doing. This false compassion doesn't work. None of us are buying it. The only people that are buying it are those ignorant enough to be leftists to begin with, and that group is diminishing, which is great to see. So another line, at our highest court, workers' rights are being taken away. Total lie. So Supreme Court ruled that non-members of a union were not forced to pay dues. And that seems like a pretty, basic freedom. Voting rights are under assault. That was another claim. That's another lie. Allowing states to purge their rolls and have people register to vote is not an assault. It's a basic right for states to handle their own records in a responsible manner. Or maybe people got sick of their dead grandparents voting for Democrats. Isn't it odd that all dead people vote Democrat? Very strange. But Muslim Americans are being discriminated against for their faith. Another lie, the travel ban, and that's what a lot of this is based on. But it's based on country, not faith. As over 90% of the world's Muslim population is not affected by the ban. Also, the State Department said that it does not affect American citizens. And think about this: they never throw Christianity in there. They want to say that Muslims are equal to everybody too. They're all equal. All religions are equal. It's usually what, except Christianity. When a Christian gets attacked, we have to handle it ourselves, which, believe me, I'm fine with. I prefer that. I don't want the government getting involved in that. I'm fine with us just handling our own and handling each other. I far more trust the Christian church as a whole, all of you guys, us Christians. I far more trust you guys than our government, despite who is in power. Believe me, I love President Trump. I don't love every single thing. He's a person just like all of us. He's fallible too. I don't love every single thing, but I highly support him. But I still trust all of you and our church here, the body of Christ. I trust far more than any government in the world, even America. So I would rather the government not get involved, and I would rather us just hold our own. But where is their outcry when Christians are discriminated against? You never see it. Not a single time do you see that from the left. So what you see is people on the right, trying to help us out, whether they're Christian or not, which is kind of nice to see too. But here's another one: women's right to choose is under threat like never before. Really, like never before? There's never been a time in all of, let's even take American history, let alone current time. Like right now in, say, Iran or Afghanistan or one of these places. Let's just take in American history. There's never been a time where women's right to choose is under threat. But see, here's the thing. What they're talking about here is abortion. Of course, abortion was highly frowned upon and illegal not too long ago. But they're not talking about a right to choose. They're talking about a right to murder. That's the control over the language. But even this is a lie, because even if, and God, pray with me, guys, that this gets overturned, even though this might result in a civil war. But hey, it's one worth fighting. But even if Roe versus Wade, even if that's overturned, which is it's a leftist scare tactic, but the issue would be kicked down to the states. It wouldn't automatically become illegal for people, for women to abort their babies. Now, it should be, because if murder is illegal, then certainly that should be. But that's not what would happen. The issue would just be up to the states, which it should be. At least it should be up to the states, at least. But really, the whole thing should just be illegal anyway. But additionally, it's always kind of amusing to see that the Democrats think that the only thing women care to choose is the ability to kill their unborn child. How about the right to choose which school they go down to, which school their kids go to, or how they want to defend themselves, or any number of the dozens of choice who to vote for, or whether they can vote at all. All the choices that women need to make every day that aren't defined basically by their reproductive organs. And that's what I was saying before. Really, there's no time even in America's history where women didn't have a harder time choosing things. It's not about the right to choose. It's about the right, which doesn't exist, but the right to kill their babies. Women care more. Women care about more than abortion, and it's really time for Democrats to learn that. So we got two more of these. Let me check in on the chat room, see how everybody's doing. It looks like everybody was thinking of Oprah too. That's great. Will Redding is here. Hello, Will. Good to see you. Good to see you again. It's been a while since we've done a live video, but I'm glad you're here. You've frequented our past live cast, so good to see you here, man. Now, here's another line. The Democratic Party believes that all people are created equal, no matter who they are, where they come from, who they love, or how they pray. That is incorrect. That is incorrect. That was proven a lie recently with the whole Baker case, the guy who didn't want to use his art form who didn't want to be forced to use what he considers his art form to celebrate something that he disagreed with. It would be the same as if you take a painter who's gay and then forced him to paint paint the inside of a church or something. If the gay painter didn't want it, well, for one thing, that scenario would almost never happen because the church would just find somebody else. But if the gay painter didn't want to do it, they're not going to push him to do it. They would just say, okay, we'll find somebody else. There's a billion other painters, and so it would be fine. But how about with this question? No matter who they are, or where they come from, who they love, or how they pray. How about how they vote? So Maxine Waters wants to harass any member of the Trump administration for having the temerity of going shopping or getting gas. We saw that with Mitch McConnell just recently, and his wife kind of stepped in, which was funny. It wasn't funny that he was getting harassed, but it was it was kind of cool to see that. But you know, we all remember Hillary's deplorable line. You know, now under normal circumstances, this may have been a unifying sentence, except that it came after dividing up the country by race, sex, and sexual orientation first. Last line that we'll look at: as we celebrate our nation's independence, Democrats reaffirm our commitment to fighting for the values of inclusion and opportunity for everyone. Now, Perez started this by misquoting the Declaration of Independence. So, you know, of course, it's fitting that he ends it by ignoring the values that the Declaration talks about. You know, you can't be inclusive without excluding those who disagree with your methods. You can't provide opportunity for everyone without taking something from someone. But what you can do is get out of the way and allow the immortal words of the Declaration of Independence to light the path. Quote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness," end quote. Okay, so yeah, that's kind of what I think about that. Those are my thoughts. Now, with this video, I am going to make this Friday's video. Because this went a little long, and that's what I want to do. And so, but that's a good thing. So this video will be Friday's show, which is, what's today, Wednesday or Thursday or something? Today's Wednesday. So day after tomorrow, I'll put up another daily video so you guys have something. But I want to make this video Friday, you know, the JPD weekly show, because 4th of July, and why not? But this has been a lot of fun, guys. And then the following week, we'll continue with the regular JPD show. We'll continue in Job and Enoch from the beautiful Defender Bible. If you haven't had a chance to get it, I guess they're all sold out, so you're not going to have a chance. But if you have one, this is what it looks like. Absolutely gorgeous. The Defender limited edition King James version with expanded Apocrypha. But if you don't have one, that's okay, because every week, except for this week, but every week we're going to be reading through it. We'll take a book of the Bible and then a book of the Apocrypha. So right now we're doing Job and Enoch. So we'll do that. We're going to continue that next week. But this Friday, this is this Friday's show. So this is this Friday's show. And but again, I'll still put up a daily video this Friday so you guys have something. Well, this has been an absolute blast. You guys are making some excellent points in the chat room, and I thank you all for joining me. I hope you have a great 4th of July. I hope that this has helped arm you with some information that you can use if some leftist wants to try to pull you into an argument where they don't know what they're talking about. Hopefully this helps. Anna is here. Anna Schuster. She says, "You speak common sense." So do you. Good to see you here. So thank you guys for joining in on the chat. JC Rules is just joining us and says, hey, you're a little late. We're just wrapping it up now, but I'm glad that you were able to be here. Go ahead and hang out in the comments section. Happy Independence Day to you guys too. Happy 4th of July. I hope you have a great one. Certainly, I mean, last year's was great because Trump was, you know, that was the first one with Trump, and you know, I think this one's even better. So we're doing good. So all right, love you all. This was a lot of fun. Until next time, take care. God bless, and God bless America.